the standard for institution in an IPR is reasonable likelihood. In other words, reasonable likelihood of prevailing with respect to at least one challenge claim. Now, in contrast to secure institution of a PGR, petitioner must either show that it is more likely than not that at least one claim of the challenge patent is unpatentable, or alternatively raise a novel or unsettled legal question that is important to other patents or patent applications. And so my question for the panel is the more likely than not standard for PGRs appreciably different than the reasonable likelihood standard for IPRs? Or put another way, are they different, and how so?
I could maybe start with the technical distinction, and then I'm very curious to hear as to whether others think that there's an appreciable distinction between the two in practice. The reasonable likelihood standard is technically lower than the more likely than not standard. So the reasonable likelihood standard has been said to sort of allow for a 50-50 chance that there's something there, whereas the more likely than not standard requires a greater than 50% chance of prevailing. So I mean, if you're splitting hairs, you can be splitting hairs between 50-50 and 51%, 49%, which seems pretty small. And to me, I think the important distinction is the standard that you are writing in your brief. You don't want to be writing down the wrong standard in your PGR or having your expert apply the wrong standard. But, it would be interesting to hear Megan and Jason maybe reflect on whether in practice they think that the standards work out differently.
In practice, I don't think the boards are really treating them very differently. It feels like the analysis is the same, the verbiage is different, but to me, in the PGRs we've looked at and been a part of, it just doesn't feel like there's a whole lot of difference there. And it's such a small tweak of the language, but yeah, we haven't seen a difference.
Yeah, I think initially there was a question posed in the first chief judge of the PTAB was asked what the difference was, and Chief Judge Smith at the time, and he basically wouldn't put a number to it on the reasonable likelihood. He just said that it gives the board a little more discretion in whether to institute, at least as far as sort of the certainty required for institution. Ultimately, at the end of the case, in the final written decision, the preponderance standard applies in both IPR and PGR. And so, yeah, I don't see a huge difference overall. You really, if you're a petitioner, you want to clear the more likely than not standard no matter what anyway. So I don't think it's that big of a distinction, because that's where you ultimately want to land at the end of the case.